Hey everybody, welcome back to Goodnight Lighthouse. I'm Miss Dorothy and I'm here to read you another story. And I've got another book about fall and another book about Sophie and her squash. Remember we read this book right here, Sophie's Squash, where she went to the farmer's market and she got a squash and she made it her best friend and she had to plant it in the ground because it got old and rotten. And then 2 new squash came up. Well, she's back with her squash and here it is, Sophie's Squash, Go to School. Sophie Squash, go to school. The squash go to school? How does that happen? I'm not sure what's going on with Sophie and her squash, but we need to get inside this book and find out. Are you ready to get inside this book with Miss Dorothy? Good. I need you to sit up and listen up, because here we go.
Sophie Squash, Go to School. Written by Pat Zietlow Miller and Anne Wilsdorf. On the first day of school, Sophie peeked into her classroom. I think she's a little nervous. Kids were everywhere, talking, laughing, bouncing. "You'll make lots of friends," said her mother. Sophie clutched her backpack. "I won't," she said. "You'll have tons of fun," said her father. Sophie is nervous. But Sophie didn't have fun. The chairs were uncomfortable. The milk tasted funny. And no one appreciated her 2 best friends, Bonnie and Baxter. She took her little baby squash to school. "Are those toys?" asked Liam. "Do they bounce?" asked Roshni. "Can we eat them?" asked Noreen. "No," said Sophie. No. I grew them in my garden. They're my friends." And then there was Stephen Green. He sat by Sophie at circle time, played near Sophie during recess, and watched while Sophie painted. "Stop breathing on me," Sophie said. "Stephen's just trying to be nice," said Miss Park. But Sophie wasn't interested. So the next time Stephen appeared, Sophie bounced Bonnie and Baxter on her knees and said, "I already have friends." "Me too," Stephen said. He pulled out a stuffed frog from his backpack. "I got Marvin when he was a tadpole." Sophie nodded. "Then you don't need me." Well, she thought, that's that. Wow, she's not being very friendly, is she? But the next day, while she was building a tower, Stephen worked on a puzzle nearby. The day after that, he peered over Sophie's shoulder when she looked at books. He even chimed in with little-known facts when it was Sophie's turn to show and share. "Actually, squashes are fruits, not vegetables." I don't know if Sophie's going to like that. Sophie's parents were no help at all. "Stephen sounds adorable," said her mother, "and it's good to have friends." "Especially human ones," added her father. Sophie hugged Bonnie and Baxter tightly. "I have all the friends I need." I think Sophie's nervous about making friends. Still, Sophie knew Bonnie and Baxter wouldn't last forever. So when Liam showed everyone how to do his loose tooth dance, Sophie considered joining in. When Roshni spilled her milk, Sophie almost shared her napkin. And when Noreen told her favorite banana joke, Sophie laughed inside her head. "Why are bananas never lonely?" "Because they hang out in bunches." That is a funny joke, but Sophie's still worried about making friends. But during recess, Liam, Roshni, and Noreen jumped rope while Sophie played hopscotch with Bonnie and Baxter. Can we play too?" asked Stephen Green. "Marvin's good at hopping." "Sorry," said Sophie. "Frogs makes Baxter sneeze." So Stephen sat alone. I don't think Sophie's being very nice. That weekend, Bonnie and Baxter looked too tired to hop or build towers. "It's time," said Sophie's mother. Sophie made a garden bed and tucked her squash in for their winter nap. "Sleep tight," she said. "See you soon." But spring seemed very far away. It's time for her to plant the squash, just like she had to do before. On Monday, Sophie drew squash babies until Miss Park asked an interesting question. "What makes a good friend?" "Oh, they play with you," asked Liam. "They help you?" suggested Roshni. "They think you're funny?" asked Noreen. "They like what you like," said Stephen Green. "Great answers," said Mrs. Park. "Let's draw pictures of our friends." "That's a great idea." Sophie drew Bonnie and Baxter. She was sprinkling matching glitter when Stephen Green appeared. "Can I see?" "No," Sophie said. It's private. Please? Stephen tugged the picture. Sophie tugged back. Then they tugged at the same time. Rip! Rip! Oh no! Sophie tried not to cry. You are not my friend, she said, and ran away. Oh no! For the rest of the day, Sophie didn't talk to Stephen Green. She didn't talk to anyone until she saw her mother after school. Sweet potato, said Sophie's mother. That adorable boy didn't mean to tear your picture. He is not a good friend, Sophie said, and neither is his frog. Sophie's being very difficult. The next morning, Sophie found Marvin in her cubby holding an envelope. Hop somewhere else, she said. And by lunchtime, he had. When Sophie's father opened her backpack that night, Marvin and his envelope were inside. Sugar plum, he said, this must be for you. Sophie opened the envelope. She found a picture of Bonnie and Baxter and a packet of seeds. Do friends really like the same things you like? She asked her father. Sometimes, he said. Oh, said Sophie, and she thought for a long time. Then she took Marvin outside and sat by Bonnie and Baxter and thought some more. Wow, it was so nice of Stephen to let her have his frog. As soon as she got to school, Sophie found Stephen Green. Your frog had a great idea, she said, and she whispered in his ear. During recess, Sophie, Stephen, and Marvin met with Mrs. Park. The next day, Miss Park gave everyone a cup, some dirt, and one small seed. What are these? Noreen asked. You'll see, Sophie replied. Can we eat them? No, Sophie said. You never eat a friend, added Stephen. Wow, they're sharing the seeds. Soon the seeds were planted in dirt-filled pots. Stephen added water, and Sophie sat them in the sun. Nothing's happening, said Roshni. But before too long, tiny shoots appeared. Sophie and Stephen did a new plant dance and invited everyone to join in, and they're all being friends. See, Sophie told Stephen, sometimes growing a friend just takes time.
Yay, Sophie and Stephen are friends now. I'm so happy. Stephen really wanted to be Sophie's friend, but Sophie wasn't being very kind. I think she was a little nervous about making a friend. And she had her squash, and she really loved them, so she didn't think she needed other friends. But we always need more friends. And when it came time for Sophie to plant the squash, what did she decide to do? She decided to share with everybody. Now everybody, Stephen and Sophie and all the other kids in the school, are going to grow their own squash. That's really exciting. And Sophie learned an important lesson about having friends. You know what? It's a lesson that I teach you all the time, or try to teach you, because it's a lesson right out of the Bible. The Bible tells us if you want to have friends, you need to be a friend. Sophie wasn't being a friend. Stephen was being a friend. He was being really kind to Sophie. Sophie wasn't being a friend in the beginning, but in the end she realized it would be okay to have more friends. So she had to do something friendly. She shared her squash, and now everybody is friends. That makes me really, really happy. It helps me want to remind you to be friendly when you go to school. If there's somebody new and they need a friend, you be the one to talk to them. If there's somebody who's trying to be a friend with you, you should let them be your friend. Remember, if you want to have friends, you have to be a friend. A good lesson for you to remember today and every day. And what else should you remember to do today and every day? Obey, and obey right away. And then come back and see Miss Dorothy, because I'm going to be sitting right here, ready to read another book to you. Bye!
Thanks for reading with Miss Dorothy. I hope you enjoyed this book, and I hope you'll come back soon to read another. What's your favorite book? Drop Miss Dorothy a note and let me know. I'll go find it, and I'll read it to you. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you soon.